So having good aim is definitely going to make you or break you as a FPS player, whether you're playing Counter-Strike, you're playing Call of Duty, you're playing Valorant, whatever the case is. Having good aim is definitely going to make you a better player. So today I want to bring you guys 5 tips that I think will definitely help you guys improve your aim and also help you become a better player while you're playing Warzone. Now, full disclaimer, this isn't going to be one of those tips like, oh, all you got to do is play the game and you'll get better. In hindsight, that is true. But I want to bring you guys something that's of value that you can implement into your game right after watching this video, and you're going to automatically see improvements as you play. So first of all, let's talk about 2 mechanics of aiming, and this is going to apply to any FPS shooter that you play. The 2 main mechanics of aiming are what we call tracking and flicking. Tracking is your ability to follow and hit a moving target accurately, while flicking is the action of very quickly moving your crosshair onto a target. And in my opinion, for a game like Warzone, I think tracking, even though flicking is very important, I think tracking is one of the more important factors out of the 2, and here's the reason why. So unlike a first-person shooter game like Counter-Strike or Valorant, where the maps aren't as big and you're not going to have as much movement, Warzone is a little bit different. It's a bigger map, there's going to be a lot more people moving around, running from point A to point B, trying to get into the zone, and your ability to track them accurately is going to determine whether or not you're going to be able to kill them. So one way to quickly and immediately go ahead and increase your ability to track opponents is to stop looking at the crosshair and instead look at the target. So a lot of players actually look at their crosshair more than their target that they're shooting at, mainly because it's big, it's colorful, it's bright in your face, and it's really easy to see. So what you want to do instead of focusing on the crosshair is you want to focus on the target that you're shooting at and make that the focal point of your aim instead of the crosshair. And because of the bullet drop factor that Warzone has in its game, it's going to be a lot easier for you to make smaller adjustments as that target is moving to compensate for that bullet velocity drop, if you're focusing on the target and not your crosshair. The next thing I want to talk about is pre-aiming and crosshair placement. But before I really get into pre-aiming and crosshair placement, I want to talk about this concept of peeker's advantage. And it's important for you to really understand what peeker's advantage is because it plays such a huge part in any FPS shooter game. So in short, peeker's advantage is due to the travel time of data packets over the internet between players and game servers. So with this whole delay, the more aggressive player is going to be rewarded over the more passive player because of this delay in reaction. So what exactly does pre-aiming and crosshair placement have to do with peeker's advantage? Well, because the more aggressive player already has the advantage over the more passive player, say you're holding an angle, you always want to be aiming at the head to chest area and in the position in which you think that the person is going to peek the corner, because it's going to give you a little bit of even playing field when they go ahead and peek, because they're going to see you before you see them, but your crosshair is already on their head and chest, so all you got to do is just hit the trigger, and then most of the time you should probably win. So you might be thinking, geez, Sango, that sounds a lot like camping. But in hindsight of things, I wouldn't say it's technically camping, but I know a lot of campers do implement this concept of pre-aiming and crosshair placement, but there are a few ways that you can go ahead and counter that if you ever come across a camper, which you probably will. So one of the things you can do is implement this concept of jump peeking, where you basically sprint around a corner and you're going to flick to where you think the opponent is or you know the opponent is, and you're just going to start shooting right off as you peek. And a lot of times this catches the person off guard because they're not expecting you to come jumping full force and just come firing, straight out of that jump. They're expecting you to sprint in and look for them because they think, you don't know where they are. But being able to jump peek is definitely one way to catch your opponent off guard and to be that aggressive player so you can go ahead and have the peeker's advantage over them. You can also slide peek as well, which is the same thing as jump peeking, but you're sliding instead. And you can also do what we call a slow peek. Now, a slow peek is more situational. It works a lot better when you have like a sniper versus sniper or a sniper versus like an AR. But I'll give you guys a quick example of reason to slow peek and when you're also implementing peeker's advantage, pre-aim, and crosshair placement. So consider you're fighting a sniper one-on-one and you're both in a building. You see each other, you shoot first, but you miss your first shot and you take cover. The other sniper knows where you are. They're going to be holding that angle waiting for you to peek. Now you have the information that you need to win this gunfight. You know where he is. You can easily pre-aim that spot. Place your crosshair on where you think his head is going to be. And what you want to do is you want to slowly peek out of that corner just enough to where you see his head and then fire away. 9 times out of 10, you should be able to take him down and win that gunfight. So next I want to talk about sensitivity. And sensitivity is one of those things that's very personable for player to player. Each player is going to have their own personal preference on what sensitivity to use, how high, how low they go, but there's some general rules that you can follow to start and then adjust from there. So if you're playing on controller, you want to play with a lower sensitivity, as a lower sensitivity means you're going to be more accurate with your shots. However, if you do prefer to play on a higher sensitivity, that can be also beneficial as well, because you're going to be able to react and flick faster to people that are shooting you, more so than someone who's playing on a lower sensitivity. However, for most players that play, I've seen through my research that a 5 to 6 cents is definitely a good starting point and definitely the average at what most people play at. But you can go ahead and start there and adjust accordingly to your preference and kind of see what works best for you. So for keyboard and mouse players, there is a general rule that you do want to follow, but that does depend on what kind of aimer you are. There's 2 types of aimers when you're playing mouse and keyboard. There's the arm aimer and the wrist aimer. The arm aimer moves their entire arm across the mouse pad in order to aim, whereas the wrist aimer only moves their wrist in order to aim. There is no right or wrong way of aiming. However, if you are a wrist aimer, I do encourage you to go ahead and try to make that transition into arm aiming, because it's going to give you more longevity in your gaming career than if you were to stick with wrist aiming. You can definitely come into contact with a lot of injuries, carpal tunnel being one of the main ones, and that can definitely stop you from playing any kind of FPS games or any kind of mouse intensive games. But if you are a arm aimer, what you want to make sure is that from one side of the mouse pad to the other side of the mouse pad, in that space that you're able to move your mouse, you can make a 360 spin on your character. That's going to be able to give you the full range of motion as you're moving your mouse and the most optimal sensitivity for your setup. The same goes for wrist aimers, but instead of your entire mouse pad, you want to be able to move 360 from one side of your wrist rotation to the other. Next, I want to talk about practice and warm-ups, and I can't stress the importance of practice and warm-ups if you really want to get better at aiming and get better at the game. For console players, custom games are one of the best ways to warm up and practice. Go ahead and jump into one, set the game type to hardpoint, set your number of bots that you want in, and go ahead and practice your tracking, practice your flicking, warm up before you jump into any Warzone session, and I promise you'll greatly see improvement in your game. For PC players, however, we have a couple options that we can do. We can jump into custom games just like console players can and do the same kind of setup that they do. Or what we can do is run programs like Kovacs or Aim Labs in order to help improve and warm up our aim. Kovacs and Aim Labs are 2 programs dedicated to helping FPS players improve at their aim and warm up before long gaming sessions. So in Kovacs, which is what I run, not too sure about Aim Labs. You can try out Aim Labs if you want. I'm just not too familiar with the platform. But on Kovacs, you have 2 things that can help you practice your flicking, your aiming, warm up your aim before you start any kind of long Warzone sessions. First one being 1 wall 6 targets, which is used to practice your flicking. That one's a really good one to develop that skill. And the other one that you can try is called ascended tracking, which basically helps you track at different elevation levels. Normally, I'll do about 5 to 10 minutes of warm-ups before I jump into any kind of long gaming session. I promise you that if you implement this into your routine before you start playing, you're going to greatly see improvement in your game, and it's going to feel a lot better when you're aiming. The last point that I want to talk about today is going to be recoil control and bullet drop. So unlike a game like Counter-Strike where bullet drop doesn't exist and the recoil control is everything when it comes to accuracy, Warzone is just a little bit different. Recoil control is a huge factor, and I see a lot of people kind of overlooking your ability to control the recoil for your guns. Most of the time, however, all you really do have to do is pull down just a little bit as you're shooting people, and your gun's going to get really accurate after that. The tricky part in aiming in Call of Duty, especially in Warzone, is your ability to predict and control bullet drop for certain guns. This especially applies to most assault rifles at medium to long range and sniper rifles at long ranges. What you want to do is you want to ingrain the bullet drop for each gun into your muscle memory so that it becomes second nature while you're playing the game and you don't really have to think about it. Attachments can definitely help greatly while you're trying to control your recoil and your bullet drop. So make sure that you're putting the right attachments on your guns in order to match your own playstyle. So hope you guys enjoyed the video today, and I hope that these tips help you out when you're playing Warzone. I encourage you guys to go ahead and try to implement these different tips while you're playing your next session, and I promise you'll greatly see an increase in your aim and you'll greatly see an increase in your kill count because you're going to be able to take out a lot more enemies than what you were able to do before. Thank you guys so much for watching today. If you guys aren't subscribed to the channel yet, please make sure you hit the subscribe button, like the video, and also hit that bell for notifications so you guys never ever miss a single video. Again, thank you guys so much, and I'll see y'all in the next one.